because my grandkids are doing so badly. It's going to affect their future. And one of them has an IEP and the other has 504. They're not being accommodated. And I'm desperate. You know, I've always had my confidence in the public school system. And it's just, they're not going to be able to pass entrance exams, or technical school, or college, or whatever else, because there's so little educating going on. I'm not blaming the teachers, I'm just saying that 2 days a week being open is not enough. And the other 3 days, they have to educate themselves. So they're in special education, and they're educating themselves. So as a grandma, when I'm not working, I'm there going, get on your computers, get on your computers. Now, if there were books, there were textbooks, I could read those, and then I could teach. But this is not a situation where I can teach the kids. And so it's, you know, opportunities that they would have had are just, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of kids that are affected by this, and I'm thinking, okay, why doesn't Liberty Public Schools think outside the box? I've done all the communicating with school board members and things like that, and it's just a brick wall. The group of people that were active on this, we just stopped doing anything because it's that impossible. One of the girls tried to get the school board to allow more people to attend. They flatly refused. So it is a brick wall. There's nothing you can do. And it's just on you to figure it out. And I'm just hoping that here at the Capitol we can do something, because I want, you know, there are kids that are dropping out. I don't want these kids to drop out of school, but that's the kind of, my grandson who's got an IEP, he does 30 minutes of work a day. That's how little they're assigning him. And Isaac is just struggling terribly. His grade point average is 1.2. He's a freshman. And I just can't turn my back on this. It's that desperate, and we just need something. Because if the school isn't going to think outside the box, somebody has to. And that's why I support these bills.
So, can you call the school and get any assistance?
Oh, I've done all of that. I've written, I've done all of that, and it's just, I'm just limited. I'm sort of limited because I'm a grandma, but I'm the one that's doing the helping at home. And my daughter works till 6 o'clock and 6:30 every night. So, you know, I'm having to just, you know, if I could just teach this stuff to them, but I can't because this program, I can hardly understand it. I can't tell what's due, if it's been submitted, and then the grading system is sort of separate from what they call Power School, and then there's Canvas, and they sort of don't communicate. You sort of don't know what's going on. And I've just given up because other people have the same situation there. There's nothing we can do. And if, you know, if they were just making some strides, even with special education kids, having the discussion, you know, we're thinking about, you know, maybe opening another day up for these kids, but that's not even happening.
Do they have any EMC instruction at all?
Just 2 days, but it's just not enough.
So, like your elementary, middle school, high school, they're all on a 2-day schedule?
Elementary, they've been going to school mostly on. It's the 6 through 12 that aren't. And, you know, they sent an email out, you want to be in wrestling? Okay, well, all right. So they send out emails about anybody that gets COVID, you know, that's their big focus. You know, they're okay with sports, but what about education? I don't know, I'm just thinking the kids' future, and it's in the toilet right now, and I'm pretty desperate.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, Senator King.
Thank you for being here today, Mrs. Gill. I understand your worries and your struggles. I feel like our students, their parents, their grandparents, teachers, administrators are all struggling. It's just a horrible situation right now, especially with the pandemic and what it has done to our society, not just the school systems, but businesses. I was just curious, were you pleased with your school system prior to COVID hitting? Were you pleased with the education your grandchildren were getting?
The kids, their mother and the kids live with me, they have since the quarantine in March.
Mhm.
So as far as I knew, things were mostly satisfactory, but I'm seeing a lot of where there are holes in their learning. So
Sure. I agree with you. There's a lot of catching up to do. And I think public school systems are aware that
but
there's.
they're not even having the discussion or anything. They're not even looking at the possibility of maybe we can do this with special education or something.
Well, I think maybe school systems are trying to deal with this. They're not all dealing with it in the same way. So I was just curious if your daughter will, once COVID goes away, we get back to our regular classrooms and our teachers are there every day. Do you feel like your daughter will send her children back to the public schools?
I would say so.
Okay.
But at this point, the fact is, COVID probably isn't going away. And I read that, and they have set the bar. There has to be very few cases before they allow there to be in-seat. It looks like an impossible situation, and when they're not having a conversation about it, when they're not looking at, let's put another half day in there, anything, just anything, but it is so hopeless that I'm sitting here because it's that desperate. And I don't want these kids to be, working at McDonald's the rest of their life.
Well,
Because they haven't had a sufficient education. It's not sufficient.
well, I feel like from the administrators and superintendents that I've talked to in my district, there's a lot of catching up to do. It's a horrible situation, and I'm not sure how that's going to happen, whether it's going to be an extended school year or an extended summer school.
But they're not even talking about it.
Well,
That's the worry. That's why it's like we got to do something, because education should be optional. We've been having this go on since 1870, and suddenly this generation of kids aren't going to get the kind of education that's going to allow them to open doors when they're 18 and 19 years old, and I'm worried about that.
well, I feel like probably within between now and the time that school usually ends, that it will be talked about. Here's what we're going to do, here's what we need to do.
They wouldn't listen at all. It was a 100% brick wall. There was no point in even trying until I looked at everything else for, I don't know, it's like, what else do you do if they're not going to open? They're using precautions the
Right.
best that they can. And, that's, at some point you have to realize this is the best we can do. We can do the best we can, that's it. But if they were, talking about doing something more, that's not happening. And that's a big district.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.